What's up, my dudes? The old Lacey just got information from Adam Cianciarulo's Instagram. I always love trying to say this dude's name. It's like you can say it about 10 million different ways. Cianciarulo, Cianciarulo, Cianciarulo. You can just say it in about 10 trillion different ways. Still don't know exactly how to say it. Cianciarulo. I don't know. But either way, we just got information on it that he confirmed did actually break his collarbone in the crash that he had in the Orlando 2 Supercross race here in 2021. You guys know where he did like a slow motion endo in the whoop section. Pretty gnarly ass whoop section that they had. A lot of guys were struggling on that. But yeah, confirmed he did actually break his collarbone, so that's pretty bummer. He's been going through a bunch of injuries, and I kind of wanted to expand a little on that in this video and kind of talk about that as a whole as far as, you know, Adam's overall career. He needs to be very, very careful at this point with that, because if he's not, he's going to get to a point where he's just going to start getting known as that dude that's just crashing all the time, right? And that's the last thing he needs at this point. He's got to be very, very careful because, you know, especially with the kind of 250 career that he's already had, it's just like he has got to be so weary about that at this point because, I mean, you guys, that's basically like, oh my God, I just pulled it right there, boys. That's exactly what, not exactly what he did, but that's basically in a nutshell the kind of crash that he had there when he broke his collarbone. But he just like, you know, he first got into the Supercross in 2014, had the injuries, like was doing really good at first, had the injuries, tore the shoulders out of place, and then tore them back out of place, and then pretty much, you know, injury plagued for like another 3 or 4 years, and then comes back, and then like still has some crashes, still has some injuries, and then gets right to where he's going to win the Supercross title, crashes, doesn't win the Supercross title, right? And then last year, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, still crashes. He had, you know, quite a few crashes last year. Quite a few, not like a ton, obviously, but, you know, I could definitely see where people could start to get this idea of like, damn, is this kid ever going to keep it on 2 wheels? Like, what the hell? You know, it starts to get to a point where it's like, man, I mean, especially with the way his 250 career went, he's going to have to start keeping it on 2 wheels for a longer bit of time, you know. He's going to have to start doing that because now he's just losing even more experience and progression that he was making in that 450 class, you know. And it seemed like he did this last year too. Didn't he miss like a handful of 450 Supercross races last year? I'm pretty sure he did, if I'm not mistaken. I think he kind of did the same thing where he like, you know, had like a crash, had a little minor injury, and then, you know, missed a few rounds and then came back later on in the season. It seems like he did that last year. I'm pretty sure he did. But either way, here he is again this year. You know, he's leading that one main event, crashes out front. I almost think he had another crash on top of that, and then this crash right here that finally, you know, actually gives him an injury. So I definitely think he's starting to get into that realm of like, people are going to start calling him like injury prone. If they weren't already, you know, people are going to start calling him crash prone, injury prone. Dude can't keep it on 2 wheels. You know, just all he ever does is crash and lay on the ground. You know, Eli Tomac kind of almost went through that sort of vibe too, over the 3 Supercross titles that he didn't win. You know, just crashing. Even this year, Tomac's had crashes already. No injuries yet, but he's already been kind of hitting the deck this year. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's time for Cianciarulo to either, I mean, and you don't want to tell somebody to tone it back, you know, because Obviously, wins are important, and wins keep you on these teams and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, man, you got to get that experience. I mean, I know that, Cianciarulo got, a second place in his first 450 Supercross race ever and a first place in his first 250 Supercross race ever. So it's kind of like, you can't really... It's when you say he needs experience, I mean, it's kind of funny saying that because he literally got a second place in the 450 main event, damn near won his first he did win his first 250 Supercross race ever, and near won his first 450 Supercross race ever. But still, even with saying all that, I think it's very important for him to either maybe back it down just a notch when he needs to, or not try to get it, maybe not try to get in such a rush. I don't really know per se for sure, but he can't keep doing this. I feel like this is kind of his last chance to kind of do this in the 450 class where he's going in here and it's not like he's going out there. He doesn't have a win this season yet. I know he has some decent finishes, but he doesn't have a win yet. And he's ran out front, damn, why do I keep coming up short on that? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It is tricky trying to play a game while you're trying to talk. Let me just say that. We're doing this gameplay live right here, so sorry if it looks like I'm, absolute scrub daddy, absolute goon riding out here. Sorry about that. I'm trying to actually keep a solid conversation going without looking at a script and play a game at the same time. Take some skills, boys. But, I think it's finally to that point now, taking into consideration all the shit he went through in the 250 class and what he's went through in the first year in the 450 class, he has got to stay away from this crashing next year. He cannot, I repeat, cannot afford to do this same thing again, or it's going to start getting to that point where it's like, okay, I mean, we can't just continue to keep this dude on Monster Energy Kawasaki if he's just going to keep on crashing, right? I'm telling you, even with the results that he has gotten, like I say, he's not even gotten a win this season. It'd be one thing if he got 3 wins and then he crashed out, then it'd be like, okay, well, at least he got 3 wins, but he's not even done that. He don't even have a win this season yet. So it's really like he's going to have to calm his shit down or something. And I know crashes happen in the blink of an eye. I know how that shit goes in motocross and supercross, but this is not his first crash this year in Supercross. This is like his 3rd or 4th crash. So that's just in the races. That's not even in... didn't he crash that race that a bunch of them got out front? I think he did. But, that's not even counting qualifying and shit like that, right? I'm just strictly talking about the main events here, but either way, you definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this, but he did break his collarbone, so it's definitely not the first time he's done that. He's probably broke both of his collarbones, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 times a piece. I know his shoulders were a big issue, and then it's right there before that year that he 2 years before he almost won the 250 Supercross title, he did something in there where he really started getting his strength up in his arms, and I guess he changed his diet. I don't know what all he did, but it got to where he wasn't, breaking a bone every single time he hit the deck, right? And he kind of was able to go through that. He wasn't even hurt whenever he crashed and lost the Supercross title, but it was just the bike was mangled up, so he couldn't finish. He's been having a lot of crashes without major injuries over the past, past 3 or 4 years, but now it finally caught up to him, finally gave him a actual somewhat substantial injury here. And, collarbone's not, that's pretty, typical run-of-the-mill, dirt bike racer's injury, but it's not like, breaking a femur or something like that, but still, this is the first real injury like this I feel like we've really seen that Cianciarulo get in a minute now. So, but we'll see how he comes back from this. I just think it's getting to that point where he's crashed so many times now throughout his whole career that he better be damn careful, or it's going to start getting to where not only a bunch of the fans and the, viewers of Supercross start calling him just a injury crash prone guy, but also teams start looking at him like, this kid can't keep the bike up. He may run out front in a couple races, but he can't stay on the bike without crashing. And that's just really not going to get you anywhere. You can get up, you can look all as fast as you want to, but if you can't finish the race, if you can't actually get a win, in the 450 class, you can't, and that's kind of the furthest thing from a championship type scenario too. Somebody that can go really fast, but then they crash. I'm out here doubling the main triple. What a legend. This track right here is pretty awesome on Supercross 2. It's probably one of the most difficult tracks in this game. It's one of my favorite tracks in this game right here. This one's cool. This one's actually, you got to think about what the hell you're doing on this one. But yeah, I mean, I just really think it's like critical for him to, and of course, you can't really think about not crashing when you're riding, or you'll crash, or you won't ride like you're supposed to and stuff like that. But I just think if he maybe doesn't get in such a rush when he thinks he needs to get up, get up in a better position, or just try not to push over his physical limit maybe, because I've seen him kind of do that this year where he'll get out front and then he just starts losing it towards the midways and the end of the race. And a lot of times when they do that, that kind of points back to their fitness is not quite where it needs to be. They can get out front and run half the race out front, but then they just start fading back. And that's kind of been a trend for Cianciarulo this year so far. Been getting awesome starts, running out front. You think he's going to win the race, and then halfway through that shit, he just starts going backwards, and you're like, what the hell happened to him? So, that's definitely happened to him pretty much every time he's been out front so far this season. So I don't know if it's he's getting an arm pump. It's be hard to believe that would be the issue at this point. You'd think, but one thing we got to remember, and this is something I didn't even know before I made my predictions and all that, but he only had 10 days on the bike apparently before this first round in 2021 Supercross. I had no idea about this, but maybe that was the deal. He wasn't able to really train and ride like he wanted to, so he's kind of off his A game when it came to that first round. And, he didn't get all that off-season physical fitness training that he wanted to get in, but he still had to race. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to race in these series when you're on a team like that. But I'm pretty for sure he only had 10 days on the bike before the first round this year. So maybe that was the whole thing to it, Maybe that's kind of why we saw him, running out front and then fading and then having some of these wrecks. Just because he's not quite got his physical where he wants it to be, and it's like his brain's kind of on another level than his physical at this current point in time. Sometimes that'll happen where your brain's trying to go one speed, but your physical fitness won't allow you to go that speed for the whole main event. So then you start having all these weird little shitty issues, like crashing out of nowhere and fading back midways through the race and all that type of shit. So, that may have been precisely what it was. Now that I think about that, I kind of think that probably is what happened to him. It kind of ended up biting him in the long run, only having 10 days on the bike before the first round. So, but he had to go out there and race. I mean, there was no doubt about that, but I just think it, especially when you talk about winning a 450 Supercross race, it's one of those things, man. You got to have, everything's got to be clicking to do that, Everything's got to be running right. You got to be fitness level top notch. Bike's got to be top notch. The time you have on the bike before the race got to be top notch. All those little factors come together to sort of affect whether or not you're going to be able to win a main event or not. But I think that's kind of why we've been seeing this little bit weird Adam Cianciarulo this year. It's kind of up and down, Adam Cianciarulo this year. So either way, it's just my opinion on it. I think it's crucial for him to run a whole season without any injuries or really hitting the deck more than once, Crucial for him to come in next season in Supercross and just finish all the rounds, man. Don't necessarily have to do anything super flashy, just race in every single one of the main events. I think that's going to be kind of a big thing for him this next year. Because now, once they get to kind of that year 3, that like junior year in the 450 class, once they get to that year number 3, I feel like that's kind of where it's like, now you really got to start proving what you're going to do. It's you're not a freshman anymore, so it's not like, oh, well, he's just a rookie in the 450 class. It's okay. Whatever happens, happens. He's just learning, right? Then you get in there on the second year, and it's like, well, it's just his second year. We can't really judge too much at this point, right? But once you get to that third year, I feel like that's when all the judgment really starts to hit you. If you don't make something happen that third year, kind of like with Webb, he's real shitty those first 2 years. And then the third year in the 450 class, he tears ass up, right? And with like Plessinger, he's on like year number 3 or 4 at this point. People are kind of starting to lose some hope in him to be able to really do it in the 450 class. That's kind of how it is, man. Feel like the pressure's kind of off of you those first 2 years, but then that third year, if you don't really start putting it together, then shit starts, kind of collapsing around you pretty quick. So I think it's going to be really important for Adam Cianciarulo this next year to make sure he don't hit the deck and get injuries like he's been doing the past couple years. So either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.